Today we're going to dive into reasons why you may be stuck in your decluttering rut, and we're going to take a deep dive into how you can get out of them today and get that beautiful, peaceful house that you really want for 2024. All right, so let's start with the very beginning and the basics. If you are stuck in a rut or you haven't even started decluttering but you want to, you need to start with your why. If you have a good reason why you're decluttering, then it becomes so much easier to get past all of those feelings of I overspent, get past all those feelings of guilt, and really be able to deep dive into your clutter and start getting rid of a lot more. So my why, the reason why I started was because I was going through some really traumatic things in my personal life, and it made me feel like I wasn't able to have control of my life. And what I found is that clutter made it so much worse. When trying to process any kind of trauma you might be having in your life, and I'm not talking, it doesn't have to be a death or anything huge. It could just be that you're dealing with behaviors from your children, or you're dealing with starting a new job or a job you don't like. Those are minor traumas in your life. They're stressors, I guess is a better word for it. In those moments, you really need to focus on them. But if you have so much clutter going on around you, it takes away from your ability to focus, because clutter actually stops your brain from being able to process. While it is on the outside of us, it really does disrupt the things going in our mind and takes away our ability to focus. So if you're having a hard time dealing with any kind of issue in your life, whatever it might be, and you feel stuck with a cluttered house, like you can't move forward, then you need to figure out your why. And what I would do is I would write it down in a journal, or I would put it on a Post-it and post it up on your wall so that you remember, this is why I need a clutter-free house. And along with that, what I would also do is I would create some kind of picture, whether it's just in your head or whether you write down a describing word or you actually draw it if you're an artist, and actually visualize what you want your house to feel like when you walk in. It's going to remind you every time that you start to give up that this is so much bigger than clutter. So once you've started your why, the next big thing that I would challenge you to do if you are stuck in your clutter is to try some experiments. Now, I have done several different kinds of experiments on this channel, and I think that's the beautiful thing about minimalism, is there is no right or wrong answer. You just have to keep trying until you find something that fits. So if you try a box party like the minimalists have talked about, that's how Ryan Nicodemus started his journey, by boxing all of his things together and actually just taking one thing out at a time that he needed. Now, if you live by yourself, that's probably something that you could logistically do, but I tried it myself. I don't live alone. I live with 3 other people. And so what I did, I boxed up my own personal things and I took them out a little bit at a time. And even doing that was mind-blowing how many things I still had that I wasn't really using on a very regular basis, or I didn't really find a lot of joy from. You can also try things like 30-day challenge, where you get rid of one thing every day for that number of days. And so, on day 1, you get rid of one thing. On day 2, you get rid of 2 things, and challenge yourself to try that. If you don't feel comfortable with that, get rid of one thing at a time. Another great thing you could try is visualizing areas that are giving you a hard time. Like if you have a junk drawer and that is a big stressor for you, start there and visualize what you want it to look like. Take everything out and only put back absolute necessities. But what I would also say with that is make sure that when you are putting those things away, you're giving them some kind of home. So categorize them together, all the pens together, the tape together, the keys together, whatever you might have in that drawer, and put like things together. That will really help you see the amount of things that you have, and it will help remind you that you don't need more in the future. Another great thing to try is a closet 333, which I have done before, or just creating some kind of capsule wardrobe, which I have several videos. I've made capsule wardrobes before, and I will link them below if you're interested in making a capsule wardrobe. It is not as scary as it sounds. And it was terrifying when I first started. I had tons and tons of clothes, but it doesn't need to be that difficult. Also, I want to mention that I have a website called Minimalist.com, and it has some free resources for you. I also have an amazing capsule wardrobe creator that is on there as well if you're interested. So I'm going to link that below as well. If you really can envision yourself decluttering your house in 2024, I guarantee it will help you. All right, friends, let's get some coffee. This is my favorite cup, and I know it's a to-go cup, but I use it around my house all of the time. It's Contigo. It's like not really actually that expensive from Target, but if you're like me and your coffee is constantly going cold, it's amazing. Okay, guys, that was a side note. Number 3, if you are really stuck in your clutter, is to give yourself a maybe pile. This is something I did when I was first starting out. For probably like almost a year, I would give myself a maybe pile. So what I would do is I would put all of those things in a box or bag, whatever you might have, and I would store them in a separate closet. So if you have any kind of place that maybe you don't look in very often, if you have any kind of closet or attic, any place that you can get out of the way. Now, if you don't, just put it maybe in a black trash bag, something that you're not going to look and see through immediately, and put it in the back of the closet you have. This is going to, one, alleviate the stressor of having to get rid of it right now, and that feeling of like, I don't know if I'm ready, because that is where I started, and that's where I think a lot of us start. Is decluttering is not a natural instinct. Like, I always decluttered, but I never decluttered enough to really make my house feel better. So when you really are trying to get rid of a lot of things, you can start to feel very, I don't know, nauseous. I don't know. It's a bad feeling you get. And I think it's kind of innate. Like, you know, the generations and generations before us didn't have nearly the amount of things that we have. And so it was not something that, you know, we may have learned from our grandparents and great grandparents. And I know my personal grandparents lived through their parents lived through the Depression, and they were very young during the Depression. And so sometimes you can get those kind of like hoarder instincts from them, because they had to keep everything because they didn't have anything. And I feel like if you are always living in a scarcity mindset, decluttering is going to be really difficult for you. If you either grew up with maybe not having enough, or you were just raised to keep everything, or even if it's just yourself that you have found that you really feel scared about giving away stuff, then creating a maybe pile is really going to help you in the long run. And what I would do personally is that when you have a maybe pile, put it in a bag that you can't see through or a box, put it away, but give yourself a timeline. Usually for me, I'd give myself like a month timeline, maybe 2 months, depending on what it is. And then if I did not go back into that box and look for something specific, then I knew the rest of it could all go. And that really helped me a lot with my clothing, because that was the hardest thing to get rid of for me. So setting that timer on your phone for the amount of weeks or months that you are willing to keep those items for, and then letting them go, is going to be the easiest way to get rid of those things that are a little bit harder for you to get rid of. And then finally, the last piece of advice that I really want to give you is that when you are constantly trying to sell or give away to someone you know a personal item, it is really going to slow you down, and it is going to stop that momentum that you really want to be building when you know that you're trying to declutter a big portion of your house. And it is going to stop that momentum that you really want to be building when you know that you're trying to declutter a big portion of your house and really change your lifestyle. Trying to always sell things is not going to be the way to go. So if you really need the money, I completely understand. I started with selling things as well. What I learned from that process of trying to sell every little thing is that either you need to bundle a like group of things together and try to sell them as a group, or only hang on to things at a certain price limit. So what I started doing is, if it was, I thought I could get about $20 to $25 or more, then I was willing to put in the time. But remember, your time is a precious commodity and something you can never get back. So if you are wasting your life trying to sell 3 pens for $1, is that really worth your time? I mean, there is a lot of things that go into selling items. And so if that is worth it to you, then okay. But if you are finding that you're trying to sell every little thing to nickel and dime to make up for the guilt that you feel about getting rid of the things that you wasted money on, this is your opportunity, and I am telling you to just let it go. You've already made the mistake. You already spent the money. Nothing you can do except, and you can start living more intentionally. And you know what? Putting that on your calendar, giving yourself reminders, and actually trying real steps to stop yourself from overspending is going to be a lot more useful than trying to get every little bit of money back from the things that you shouldn't have bought. So guys, these are real things that I have done that have made a big impact in my life and have stopped me from buying so many things and allowed me to have a house that functions and I live with much less clutter. If you enjoy learning about minimalism, simplicity, then please remember to hit subscribe, and I will see you guys next week.